All right, Jen, I believe we might be on. Let me just double check if it's happening. Give me a second.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we are live. Yay! Hi, Jen. So nice to
Hello.
see you. I'm so excited. This
Same
was
too.
a little bit of a struggle. I am not the most technically able person, so I am definitely pushed to the limits a little bit here when I'm trying new media and things like that.
We're all
But
learning new skills this time.
I no question about that. Every day has been just something new, whether it's homeschooling with the children or working on just different platforms and
Hmm.
trying to do stuff. So it's been sort of fun, I think, in so many ways. So this is definitely great. So before we start talking about coping with quarantine and figuring out what the emotions that we're all kind of feeling, I just want to make sure that I take a second to just introduce myself because while I think that in this group there are a lot of moms and a lot of women that have already met me, whether through classes in our studio in West Orange or through our virtual classes that we've been running, there's probably a few that have not met me yet. So my name is Alice and I'm the owner of Whole Mother Village. Um, it really has been my passion for many years at this point, just to try to empower and educate and connect women. The idea and notion of a village and that just communal support has been something that I have really very acutely missed when I was a new mom. And a few years back, I really kind of decided that, I really want to be the change maker and I want to create a wonderful space for moms where they can really share their own experience and really want to make sure that there is a space where motherhood is addressed as just whole and wonderful experience for women. So I wanted to just kind of continue in my in our physical space. I've been really trying to weave together different resources and keep just bringing together different things that empower women. And so, since we don't have the opportunity to do this in our physical space, I'm really excited about trying to bring together more ways that can just kind of continue this like community and village building activity, on this different platforms. So here we are, and I'm super excited to welcome Jen, who has been a friend, who has been a wonderful professional that has been working with me at Whole Mother Village for the past, I don't know, a couple of years, maybe,
Yeah,
Jen, right?
couple years.
And she has been somebody that I turned to recently because I felt like I was really kind of struggling. So, the first couple of weeks of the quarantine were not a big deal. I felt like, okay, we'll just kind of power through and we're going to be okay. Then, the next couple of weeks were kind of like a lot of work and craziness and trying to kind of settle down. And then last week, it just really fully hit me and I really wasn't sure what was happening. So I called Jen and Jen just kind of walked me through all different kinds of things. And I thought, oh my goodness, I think we need to talk because I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I think so many other moms can hear what I just heard from her. And it was really empowering. It was very soothing. It just really made me feel so much better. So we're going to be talking about all of that. But first of all, I would like to welcome you, Jen, again. And if you can please just, share a little bit about you.
Of course. And again, thank you so much, Alice, for putting this all together. I mean, my hat's been off to you since the very beginning when I met you, and you never stop amazing me. You literally work your tail off day and night, building the physical space in the studio. And from the moment that things started to just get so chaotic with this pandemic, I saw you do the same with the virtual studios. So your passion, your dedication inspire people like me. And I know they inspire the moms that you touch day in and day out. So thank you so much for all you do. So my name is Jennifer Perera. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I have a private practice. I'm typically based in Cranford, but obviously everyone right now is online telehealth. You're doing the online therapy at the moment. Um, and so, but my practice, I've always specialized since I opened my practice in supporting new moms during their journey during pregnancy, the postpartum journey, and then the early parenting struggles and challenges, even as we get into the toddler years and the early elementary school years. So like that's always been my specialty in my practice, working with like prenatal and postpartum depression and anxiety. Um, and so my background in mental health goes back over 10 years now. So a couple years ago opened the practice, and it's really just been the most phenomenal thing for me personally and professionally. So, and that's when I met up with Alice. um, just a couple of things to kind of get us kicked off here. And these are things that have even been coming up for me, Alice, since we last spoke, so I think it's important to bring them up now. One of the things that we keep hearing a lot is this phrase about how we're all in this together. And for some people, that's very validating, and for some people, that's very invalidating. Because, in a sense, I feel like while we're all, and this is also something that I've seen thrown around a bit that I really identify and resonates with me, is that while we're all in the same storm in terms of what we're going through, we're not all in the same boat in terms of the resources, our situation, our environment. For everyone, the situation is a little bit different. Um, so I want to kind of set the context for this Facebook Live, for this conversation today, understanding that we're speaking very generally here, and if you take even just a little bit, or one thing or two things, and really try and kind of apply it to how your situation is, I think it can really be helpful and beneficial. But I want to start off by acknowledging that how we're all experiencing this situation, this pandemic, is different for everyone. So
Yeah, that's a really wonderful point, and I think that there's just so many things like that that are meant to kind of bring the unity and just kind of bring the compassion, right? Let's just say like I get it, I hear it, but not everybody's got the same situation, and not
yeah,
everybody's in the same boat. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that sounds awesome.
It's definitely impacting all of us. I mean, not a single person can say that life hasn't been disrupted. But for others, it's been disrupted in ways, that it's hard for other people to even imagine. So,
Yeah, I was just talking to my husband a little while ago, and my mother-in-law is in her mid 70s, and both us and my sister-in-law and her family have made the decision that we're going to not get in touch with her. We're going to just kind of stay away. We have children that have been at school and different sports and everything, and we were just talking to her the other day, and after 5 weeks, I think she's really kind of at this point where she's like, you guys don't understand it. And it really dawned on me that, I don't have also babies. And I was talking about it in our morning group, is that there's actually a kind of unit. I have two children that are 12 and 14, and then I have a almost 5 year old. There's actually a lot of us. We are talking, we're interacting with each other, we're playing ping pong in the backyard and doing projects, and in that aspect, I feel like, yes, I'm kind of like locked in my like house and backyard, and it feels very stifling. But it's not the same what a single mom with a baby feels like when she's in a home, or a family with two little babies, or they're not getting any help. So yeah, the situation certainly is very different for all of us.
right.
And then you bring in, obviously the financial implications of whatever is happening, and the job losses and all of that. So there's a lot, I think, and one of the few things that we have talked about was just kind of really feeling like super, like, what was the word? Like, not grounded, right? Like, I just kind of felt like I don't know what's going on. I am just kind of, I don't know if I'm angry. I am feeling super desperate. I'm talking to somebody and they tell me, well, life is not going to be the same afterwards. I want it to be the same. And then I get like really frustrated. So it's been just kind of this like really crazy, weird mixture of things, right? So like, what's going on? Like, I'm trying to kind of pinpoint this because I don't feel like I've ever felt like this.
Yeah. Um, so when we originally started talking about this last week, what really started to resonate for me and what way I was kind of conceptualizing this is kind of like um, you can imagine like a spider web, and so it's like this web, and I'm calling it for myself like this web of emotional confusion, because there's so all the emotions are kind of intertwined, in my mind. They overlap sometimes. Sometimes one leads to the other, and these are emotions. The most obvious one people think of is like what an anxious time this is. How everyone's so nervous, we're so uncertain, we're not sure what's going to happen next, what's coming next. Um, Everyone's making their own individual decisions in terms of what's best, for them as a family unit, and what their situations are. So everyone is trying to, do their own thing, but there's a lot of anxiety involved with, even like day-to-day decisions and situations that people come up with. Um, Grief is another one that I think is very salient, very like at the forefront, but I don't think we're talking about it as much. I'm only really starting to see people talk and identify with it more, as the impact, especially here in the tri-state area in New Jersey, and a lot of people, extended family into Manhattan. It's really been the hardest hit area in the United States, hands down. There are a lot of personal stories that are really starting to become known, and that I'm, just coming across in social media and things like that, um, that grief is really starting to become, um, identified, and on top of that, it's realizing that the grief is so complicated that for those who are experiencing losses of family members, that the way they're experiencing that loss is in such a different way that they never had imagined that they were going to lose, their parent, their brother, their sister, their grandparent. We're used to, hopefully having the opportunity to make it there if you can before your loved one passes away.
Goodbye.
That's not happening in these situations. People are saying goodbye on Zoom calls, and it's just overwhelming sometimes to think about. So grief is a major one. Grief in a little less literal sense, is the grief of like the everyday, activities. I have a toddler myself, and he was supposed to have started soccer over the weekend. And I have to say, I've been doing really well, as well as anyone can. But it was a real gut punch over the weekend, when the notification came up my calendar where I had like, oh, this is when he's supposed to start soccer. I was in the back of my mind that, it was coming up and we were going to miss it. But to have that notification pop onto my calendar, like I said, that was a low level of kind of like that grief and sadness of like, gee, we don't get to start this now. We've been waiting to
Yeah.
start it. Um, then a little bit of like anger, bubbles up from that frustration that, this is where we're at and we haven't made it farther yet. And then the hopelessness pops up. Well, how much longer is this going to go on? Is it going to be like this forever? So it's this whole web. The other one that really pops up, the emotion that I see popping up a lot, is guilt. As a mom, like there's so much research on this. Like baseline, things are normal, things are going well. A mom carries around so much guilt. Like we can literally wake up and find a reason to feel guilty about something, right? So, um, you know, that also is just so kind of salient for me right now. And I think for others as well, just like the things that we're doing to, be able to manage day to day as we have our kids home with us, 24/7, that, um, you know, trying to balance and feeling like the balance is hard. And then, the guilt that comes along with, you know, am I doing this well enough? And honestly, the answer is yes. We are doing this as well as we can. No one is expected to be a parent, a teacher, an employee, a partner, a spouse, all simultaneously. Teachers go to work and they teach, and parents go to work and they work, and people don't do it at the same time. So it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I mean, it's really, I mean, I think that we're all kind of like starting to, just kind of be challenged for sure in ways that we never did. But I think one of the things that made me feel a lot better was you telling me that just all these emotions, all of this grief and anger and frustration and all of that stuff, that is kind of normal, that's just the pressure of what's happening. It's just not getting to me, and I'm just kind of being silly, or like I'm just not breathing enough, or whatever it is. I think um, that kind of information felt kind of really really good. And I think that in terms of grief, I mean, it's I think what we talked about also was like the different kind of griefs and guilts that we are carrying, right? Like, I should be grateful I haven't lost anyone, and I know that, like, in my brain I am very aware of the fact that I am lucky, and so far everyone that I know is healthy and safe, but I still can't help feeling like crap because, exactly, my son is not playing soccer right now, or because I'm not going to get to see my family this summer in Europe, and I've been looking forward to it for the past 9 months, and and there are small things, but they still are unsettling me. So then I feel guilty because I'm feeling like, okay, why am I feeling so unhinged over something so silly as a soccer season, or
Yeah.
tickets that I'm not going to use this summer? But it is big to me, and I guess it makes sense. I mean, and talking about a loss yesterday, I decided I've just been feeling extremely cooped up, and I just have been thinking like, oh my gosh, I need to like kind of regain some like normalcy. And so, of all things, I decided to go to Costco, because I just felt like, okay, I'm just gonna go shop, and it's just gonna be great. Get out of the house. Getting out of the house felt fantastic, and really first time in weeks where I actually kind of left my house, and I got to Costco, and the scene was like from a sci-fi movie. I really almost turned around and went home because there was this huge line wrapped around the building and back, and everybody standing there with their faces covered. I mean, it really took my breath away. And so, talking about loss, right? The loss of normalcy, like,
Right.
really, I mean, it is unsettling. And I know from talking to other moms that I don't know if there is something from a point of view of a professional that happens at a certain kind of like point, like what is it, like 5, 6 weeks, right? Into all of the stress. Like, is there something that, like kind of like starts culminating, like that it
Yeah.
really kind of like comes in, or is it just a coincidence that I feel like it just kind of got to me now, and then I'm hearing from other people that they're just reaching these like breaking points as well?
Yeah. So most people, you're probably familiar with like the whole idea of like fight, flight, or freeze, kind of that like adrenaline response in face of like a crisis or some threat or something like that. So I think we really need to kind of conceptualize this in that way. When this first started happening in mid-March, a lot of news was coming out. We were all trying to catch up, figure out what was going on. Everyone was trying to make their own individual decisions in terms of like, how does this impact me, and how do we respond as a family unit, as an individual. So you're really in that fight flight
Hmm.
category. You're fighting. You're trying to keep things together, or so that's kind of like adrenaline response. Um, but as the time goes on and you have done a lot, um, like in response to that, it's going to taper off. There's going to be less and less that you have to do kind of in terms of like busy work, in terms of making adjustments, and you will settle into a little bit of a routine. So then as you get into that, it seems natural, at least to me, that things are going to feel like they settle down a little bit. But then when like that automatic nervous system starts to settle down a little bit is when other things start to bubble up, like the guilt, the loneliness.
Hmm.
some anxiety again, some of the grief. That's when you really start to have some time to stop and reflect on what's going on. But it's this interesting dynamic where you still have new information coming at you, where you still have to be making some decisions. But definitely, can feel less intense
Mm-hmm.
as the weeks go on, but at the same time intense because it continues to wear on, and we don't know how much longer this is going to go on for, that uncertainty. So yeah.
Yeah, that I find to be a really, really hard piece of the puzzle is just like not knowing when the last piece is gonna come in, right? Like how long is that going to be that we're going to be kind of like hanging out in this? So okay, so we're all stressed out, we're all feeling like crap, we're all fighting and trying to kind of stay positive, be the anchors of our families and be amazing moms and holding on to our jobs. So how do we, like how do we just kind of like process all of this, how do we channel it, and how do we just kind of like keep going? So you know I know we spoke together about some like cool coping, techniques and some kind of self-care things. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important. And I tend to go towards one of my favorite mottos. It applies in so many different ways, and you can kind of adjust it to apply here. It's the motto of doing small things often. And it's the idea that you don't have to sit down and spend an hour doing like a full blown cardio exercise. If you do that, great. More power to you.
Okay.
Uh, but you could also take a 20-minute walk, get outside, um, you know, could have a similar impact on your overall mental health. So, looking at what are the small things that you can do throughout the day, um, keeping as much of your normal routine as possible. Um, I know I can say I'm guilty of being the one who, is still in their pajamas at noon on certain days. And I can tell
Yeah.
you that those are the days that weren't my best days. So I can tell you, like, the closer I can get to what my normal routine was before all this started, a routine of, being up, having breakfast, out the door by like a certain time, if I can try and mimic that, like, kind of daily routine and hygiene, that goes a long way to setting myself up to having a better day. A few of the other basics like sleep, just sleep hygiene. Again, I'm guilty every now and again of saying, "Hey, I feel like one of the ways I can cope is, after my toddler's in bed, getting an hour of TV or Netflix or catching up on my show." But I have to be cognizant of not letting that creep into the wee hours of the night as we Netflix binge and then cutting into your sleep too much. So that balance, but just getting a good night's sleep goes a long way. Diet, you know, those are some of the gimmies, the freebies. Um, and again, small things. Often when we talk about making change, it's you're not going to go from 0 to 100 in no time flat, especially when you're talking about things like diet and exercise and self-care. And it's those small incremental changes that you make over the days and the weeks that build up to what you ultimately are wanting. So make sure you're focusing on what those small things are. A couple of others that are sometimes a little less obvious um, is, and this was something that was salient for me, is looking at like my patterns of my mood over the course of the day or the week. Um, and this can be really important because sometimes patterns in our mood will develop and we won't even realize that there's a pattern there because we're not really thinking about it all that much. We're just kind of taking things day by day as they come, and not, but like I said, not really thinking too much into it. But I know for myself, and Alice, I think you had mentioned something similar, that when I was like 3 or so weeks into this, I started realizing that on one certain day of the week, I kept feeling it more intensely, feeling more crummy, and
Hmm.
just really down about it a little bit more than the rest of the week. Like I felt like I was on top of it better and managing the rest of the week better. then I was realizing after, like I said, 3 weeks, this is all happening on the same day. So then I had to stop and look at, well, what is going on throughout the rest of the week that's leading up to this day, or what's going on specifically on this day? What's the pattern there? Is there any changes that I can make on that day so that I can make that day easier? So looking for those patterns has really helped me. It's also helped me that even if I don't correct the pattern, even if the same emotion, that same kind of crumminess creeps up, I can tell myself, oh, it's Friday, it's Saturday, it's Monday. I expect this. And I know, and now I can just go take a half an hour to myself or go take an hour to myself, and hopefully you can get through it faster knowing that this is just a pattern. It's not how I'm going to feel tomorrow when I wake up. So trying to find those patterns.
That's a definitely great idea. I need to maybe really observe a little bit more, get in tune with this. But one thing that I remember from talking to you that really kind of just kind of stuck out of all of this for me was you talking about just the reframing, right? Like how
talking about what?
Reframing, just kind of like how we kind of shift the way we think about things too. So I thought that that was really powerful because, you know, like, is it half empty or half full? And just kind of like how our minds can just kind of, you know, perceive the same information or the same situation, but we have the ability to look at it. And especially the one about the social distancing versus the physical distancing. I thought that was really a powerful one.
Yeah. And I mean, and that can be interpreted in so many different ways. But, you know, the most immediate thought with like it's physical distance, not social distancing, is just the whole idea that maintaining your social relationships and your friendships are so important. You know, however you choose to do that, that's important to do it in some way. And just because there's physical distance doesn't mean that there has to be that, you know, breakdown in the relationship. The other thing with that is also, you know, kind of, and this is, you know, in terms of like the glasses half full, you know, using this as an opportunity to be able to reconnect with people that you haven't spoken to in a long time. You know, since more people are getting so much more comfortable with Zoom and online, you know, video, you know, using that as a way to reconnect. But, you know, one of the things that comes up the most when you start talking about reframing that I think of, and this is a lot of times tied in with anxiety more so than anything else, but it can apply to some of the other emotions that we were talking to as well. But I think for an example, we'll just stick with anxiety. A lot of thoughts I'm sure that are going through everyone's mind right now is the thought that this is just going to last forever. Things are never going to return to normal and things are always going to be like this now. Like we're not getting a lot of signs in terms of like, you know, yes, there's some news about, you know, certain things happening here and there. But, you know, right here where we are in New Jersey, you know, we're still kind of where we were, you know, a few weeks ago, you know. But we have to really kind of watch, you know, really, we have to really kind of work with that thought because another one of my catchphrases is that anxiety thrives in absolutes. So again, when we start thinking about things last forever, it's never going to end. It's always going to be like that. Those are very definite, absolute, you know, phrases, a way of phrasing things. You know, we need to kind of backtrack that thought a little bit into, you know, that this is going to pass. We don't know, the timeline isn't certain. We don't know when it's going to pass, how it's going to pass. But we do know that there are researchers, there are doctors, there are scientists, you know, we know everything that's going on behind the scenes. We know they've developed, you know, solutions and vaccines and, you know, we've tackled illnesses like this before. We've just never had to live through the actual process. Certainly other generations, you know, you're going to go all the way back to 1918 to really have something on this scale and this magnitude. But even the 1950s and 60s, I think we had, I'm gonna have to get my history right, but I think it was measles then. But so there are things, you know, there are things that are being looked at and tried, and there's certainly, the medical community is doing everything that they can. The physical distance, the social distancing, it is working. Especially in other areas of, the country and in the world that maybe weren't as hit quite as intensely as we are here in the tri-state area. They're starting to see that, these are ways that we can try and resume in certain ways, but these are still the precautions we're going to have to take so that we can, prevent like another peak. So things are being done, things are working. It's just that the process, it's hard. Yeah. No one wants to have to go through this process, but it's where we're at.
So. After we spoke last week, and I was kind of like trying to really figure out, okay, I got to do something. I have to just kind of like flip my head and just flip the switch, and I need to look at things like not in the darkness, but like in the light. And it is interesting that I have been able to actually look at a few things that I was like, like I think that when you can get past it, past that acute feeling of, the grief and anger and all of that, like you are able to actually, discover so many things. And I think that in so many ways, this situation is so uniquely wild that while it's so intensely crazy and scary and, hard, when have we had this time to be with our families, with our spouses? I don't think I have ever spent this much time with my husband. In the past 15 years that we've been married, I don't think that I've had him around for so long. And surprisingly, we're actually having a really good time. It's smoother than I would thought and would think, and it's really great. But I mostly have been kind of like looking at my kids and my two teenagers or my two tween and teen. I'm looking at them and I'm realizing this is making them stronger. I know they're struggling. I know that 5 weeks without seeing their friends is starting to really reflect on them, and I'm starting to see that weigh on them. But the way they stepped up to this challenge of me working through their days, and dad is working in the basement, and they have a toddler sister, and we're kind of like tag teaming. Like this is a true teamwork.
Yep.
Because I have to work, dad needs to work, they have to do schoolwork, and somebody needs to stay on top of Calista. And so it's been really, really great to kind of see like, wow, look at these kids. Like they're able to take care of her, they make food for everybody. We have really kind of like, just really, we actually physically sat down and we said, this is, not free for all, everyone's running around. This is teamwork. We can get through this only if we all take our part in this. And that really was one of the things that kind of like stuck out to me as like, this is great. Like they're really learning something. They're learning to be responsible. They're learning to be, assertive. They're taking, initiatives in different ways. And, I'm shocked that nobody has showed up because that's like the normal way that things are happening. Somebody comes and somebody forgets that, I'm doing something. But so that has been, I've been trying to really focus so much more on these kind of things, and definitely is working. So, I certainly, since we talked last week, I certainly feel like I've been feeling a lot better. And even if I'm not feeling great, I am feeling kind of better about the fact that it's okay to not be the strong woman and just kind of try to be, the tough one, and, that I'm entitled to feeling not great. So,
I don't know if you realized it, but I mean, that's actually a reframe that you just did right there. In terms of like your children,
right, I'll take it.
The schoolwork, like, yeah, I mean, for anyone who has, children who are, elementary school, middle school, high school age, even kids in preschool, parents are worried about what they're missing. They're worried about academics. I was pulling up on my phone. I saw something yesterday that really stood out at me. It's from mother.ly, motherly, that I love and follow. I'm just going to read this. Dear parents, don't stress about schoolwork. In September, I will get your children back on track. I am a teacher and that is my superpower. What I can't do is fix social emotional trauma that prevents the brain from learning. So right now, I just need you to share your calm, share your strength, and share your laughter with your children. No kids are ahead, no kids are behind. Your children are exactly where they need to be. With love, all the teachers on the planet Earth.
Oh,
so
great.
I think as a parent who is worried about what are their children missing, we need to reframe that to what are your children getting that they wouldn't have got otherwise. And if you really stop and think about that, it's a lot. They're getting back time with their parents. And like you said, they're also learning and seeing, they're looking to their parents in terms of how are they handling this? Are they handling it calmly? Are they handling it with stress? And that can be a really important lesson that we're also teaching our kids, which is, how do they handle struggles and how do they come through them? And I mean, that's an incredibly important lesson that children need to learn. So
Coping.
there's different, they're still learning. They may not be learning quite what they would have sitting in a classroom, but they're still learning a lot.
Love it. Yeah, I think that that's something that we definitely forget sometimes, right? That's just like, it's okay for all of us to go through this and all of us to build up some skills and mechanisms, because I think stress, I mean, this level and this kind of situation is so unique, but there are going to be times when we'll go through rough times, when we'll be going through grief, and just being able to have some kind of system and way to just deal with it would be really, really important. All right, let's just tell everybody, because I know we do have a few people that just kind of like coming on and off. So if anybody's watching us and has any questions that they want to ask of Jen, throw them our way, and then I will try to read them, and we'll try to answer them. So we'll give it a few seconds if anybody has anything that they want to ask. And we were talking last time also a lot about kind of self-care, right? And so we had this conversation a little bit earlier that, I had not actually realized, and I know you mentioned this last time, that, just kind of keeping up with the hygiene, personal hygiene, and you just mentioned a little while ago, right? Like staying in your pajamas. And that was something that I have realized over the past month, that, I feel like nobody sees me. So why should I be washing my hair? I have, for the first time, used face cream last night and the entire episode of, quarantine life. I'm wearing clothes, if I'm wearing clothes, like I might be in pajamas. And it certainly is not helping. I mean, it does not make me feel better. And so it felt actually really nice. And it felt like it brought this element of like normalcy a little bit when this morning, like I just put some face cream and I actually got dressed earlier. And then another thing that I've been doing that you told me not to do is to really wean myself off the media. And that's been really working.
Wean yourself of what?
Of media and listening to the news. Oh my goodness. I feel that's huge. I've been really trying to stay away. All of a sudden I have tons of time that I can like dedicate to something else. But it's true that even though it doesn't feel like it's something horrible, it does actually like occupy my brain in a way that is just kind of, I think, making me feel just not great. So that has been definitely. All right, let me see. As I see. All right, we have Tyranny. Yeah, Tina's struggling with homeschooling, I think, a little bit, right? And she says she's currently typing emails to principal and teachers because she's disappointed that they haven't seen their teachers live, and they haven't been able to connect with the children. That is a tough one because I think that a lot of the feelings that we have are really connected to our kids, right? Like I think
Right.
we're really kind of feeling for them, and she says she's feeling very frustrated, upset for them. Yeah, I hear you. I think that I think like 95% of my worries are connected to my children's feelings and their experience of all of this.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
that motherhood? Is that what it is?
What's that?
Is that motherhood? Is that how we kind of process things when we're moms?
Sure. Yeah, and Tyranny, I think hopefully I don't know if she was here when she joined. Hopefully she's been on for a lot of it, but some of that frustration might also be stemming from just the concern, like I said earlier, about are my kids, where are they? Are they falling behind? Just trying to keep up with academics, and just realizing that your kids are, everyone is, in this regard, everyone, no one's behind, no one's ahead. Everyone is right at where they need to be, and the teachers know that when they get the kids back in the classroom, that everyone is going to, where we need to restart. Um, Another place that I've been going a lot, and I think this could also apply here with Tyranny, is I have been trying to practice extending a lot of grace, compassion, and self compassion to myself, to my family, to those around me. I know sometimes I do, or people get frustrated with, seeing, the decisions that other people are making. Other people are handling this differently, or maybe making different decisions, and just really trying to step into a place of saying, I am my person. This is our family unit. This is the decisions that we are making. Someone else is completely different. Again, this goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. Same storm, but different boat. Um, and so just realizing that everyone's situation is a little bit different. So I don't know what's going on with the school, with the teachers, why there's not the connection. I can certainly see how you could crave that and think it could be very beneficial. But I think the more we can extend grace and compassion to those around us and to ourselves, I think it's helpful.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to go and turn on the lights because I think
No, it just started
storm
raining.
storm came outside. So the it went really dark in here. So not that anybody really needs to see me. But let me see if we have any more questions. We also spent a little bit of time, and I think that maybe let's wrap up if we don't have any more questions. Let's wrap up on that. Just talking about self-care, right? Like we just talked about, like,
Yeah.
I think the compassion that we just started talking about and just kind of extending that to ourselves and to others. And, I'm trying to be kind of aware that, what other people are doing, what I see on my end is just a little portion of what's kind of behind it. And so, even the teachers, I don't know, we don't know what they're dealing with in terms of, struggles with the system, what kind of abilities they have to connect with, are they choosing not to create videos? Are they choosing not to go live? Are they told not to do it because not everybody has the access to, a video or, live, um, streaming platform or something like that? Um, but also, I know the teachers have also children at home too, and they're doing what everybody else is doing. We're just kind of juggling everything together, and um,
Yeah.
I think in this aspect, trying to kind of, I don't know, just yeah, just think again, like, I feel you. I know you're hopefully struggling, and writing an email and asking for help and addressing these issues, hopefully that can come from the top and just help the teachers to be, maybe more diligent. But it's true, we don't realize, I think, especially with school, right? Like how much goes into what teachers are doing. It's not just teaching. And, I think that this is what I'm sure that, partially Tyranny is kind of dealing with. Like our teachers, they're mentors to our kids, right? Like they're
Right.
not just sitting there, especially for the little ones.
Yep.
They're big buddies and big friends, and children are looking for guidance to them and for encouragement and all of that stuff. And then I'm sure that some of these little people are really feeling this as a big loss, not being able to kind of connect and see the
Yeah.
future. But let's go to some of the self-care aspects of just coping with this. So give us three things that we can try to do that will be a good practice, something that we can put into our day that could be wonderful.
Yeah. So I'll give you three, and then I'll give you my little soapbox version about self-care that pretty much all my clients get at some point.
Awesome.
Um, uh, Fresh air, outside, sunlight, vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
I can't emphasize enough how important it is to get out there, to be outside, and a little bit of movement. Again, it doesn't have to be that, heart pumping cardio exercise, but movement. And if you can do that movement outside, the better. That's number one. Um, uh, Number two is really what you had, touched on, Alice, and what you've been, seeing some benefits of this week, is limiting how much time you spend on social media or consuming news. Just because you get yourself into this loop, the news is pretty much the same, just by almost definition of the fact that we're in a pandemic. Things will get worse before they get better. Things will get worse, they'll plateau before they get better. So, consume enough so that you know what's going on and you can make the decisions that you need to make. But beyond that, limit it day by day. Don't let it all consume the many hours of your day. Still got other things to focus on. Um, and, number three is not letting yourself um, dwell in that world of absolutes. Uh, when you find yourself, feeling, those absolutes, telling yourself, wait, I'm in the absolute territory and this is where I need to get myself out of. We don't live in a world of absolutes. The only thing certain in life, things aren't certain. So same thing applies here. My quick soapbox about self-care is that self-care looks and feels different for everyone. And I talked to so many of my new moms about this as well, because catchphrases, self-care is so vogue. It's such a catchphrase. Like, of course, new moms know they need to take care of themselves. But to give a laundry list of, if you do A, B, C, and D, then you will feel better, I feel like sets people up to say, well, I did A, B, C, and D, I followed your prescription, and I didn't feel better. And the reason for that is because what makes me feel better is going to be different from what makes you feel better. For some new moms, self-care is getting a 15-minute shower every day alone. For other new moms, it's, that walk or exercise, or getting to watch that one TV show that they can never get. It's so different. Self-care is doing that thing that makes you feel better, period. So it's so different for everyone, because we're such individual people. So, but the one thing I do know is how important it is to find what are your things, what are those 1, 2, 3 things for you that really make you feel better, and make sure that you're finding ways to schedule them in. That's the other important piece, is scheduling them in.
Mm.
Giving yourself some flexibility, but holding yourself accountable to say, I'm not going to let this slide for too long. I need to do this, because I know when I do it, I feel better.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you just so much. This was so good, so wonderful to just talk about all of this. Um, everybody who is either has been watching us live or is going to be watching this later, please make sure that you find Jen at Jen. What is your website? Intervalhealth.com.
Yep, intervalhealth.com.
If you have any questions or anything like that, if you want to reach out or any number of reasons, Jen is the perfect person to go to. And I'm sure Jen will be talking and chatting about some other things as time goes by. It's been wonderful. I hope it's going to be helpful to a bunch of moms to be hearing that they're not alone and that these emotions are normal and that there are some ways to do that. So this was awesome. I'm so happy we're able to join me, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much. Thank you for putting this
All right,
together,
now
Alice.
let's see if I can turn this off. There we go.